Aaron, welcome back. It's episode 8, and today we are going to add, finally, something interactive to our little game. I created a little spaceship sprite, and today we are going to add it to the array, render it to our browser outputs, and we are also going to add the ability to watch the keyboard so that when the user presses the left arrow or the right arrow, our little spaceship will move left and right. So there's a lot going on today. If I'm going too fast, please leave a question in the comments. If there's something you don't understand, let me know. I will create a video to address your questions if I can. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I'm going to change the way we've been doing a couple of things. First of all, we've been using the dev tools at the bottom of the screen, which is really getting in the way, and it's too small of a working space. Let's go ahead and give them their own window. And let's make it full screen. And this will allow us to slide back and forth between coding and the rendering. Also, this snippet is really named wrong at this point. Let's call it game. Okay. So we're adding the new ship. This is what I designed. I've already converted it to base 64. You can see a previous episode if you want to see how to do this. So the base 64 contains the information to draw our sprite graphic. Okay, let's create our ship. It's going to be an image, and how big should it be? It looks like tree template was not created with our variables. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. We don't want any hard-coded numbers, or as few as possible. Okay, and it looks like I don't think we need this blank anymore. Okay, so let's put our variables here for the size. The ship is 3 times the size of a normal icon, so I'm going to put times 3. Okay, now the source, which is our base 64 code. I'll paste that. And then we need position absolute for the style, which allows us to move it everywhere. So now we have a ship. We didn't use a ship template, or we didn't name it that because we don't need to clone it every time like we did for the trees. The Y doesn't need to be 3 times as big, just the X. Y is normal. Ship is longer than it is tall. Okay, just checking over everything here. We're going to need to add the ship to our container div. Okay. Let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. Hey, look at that. It's black on black, though. It's really hard to see the ship. Let's try to fix that. So there's different kinds of black. Sometimes you can use a slightly lighter version of black. Right now we're just using plain black, which is the darkest. So I'm giving you some codes here for different neutral colors. Like white is FFF, black is 000, and there's a bajillion grays in between. So 777 is a medium gray, 555 is a dark gray, and they have some really dark grays, of course, like 111. Okay, let's try something really close to black. Okay, we need to be able to read from the keyboard. So I'm going to add an event listener. So we're going to listen to when they press a key. Document.add event listener, key down. And then when they do that, we're going to call a function called handle key down. And I'm going to put this remove event listener before, because I don't want this event to be bound every time we run the script. We'll talk more about this later. Okay, we need to set up the coordinates for the ship. So let's do the grid size x divided by 2, and let's take all the decimals off of that. So we just want to work with whole numbers. So math.floor it. And the ship y should be pretty simple. It's just going to be the max size minus 1, the max y size of the grid. We need to handle key presses. So we'll create a function to handle key presses. Basically, when they press a key, it's going to send us an event object, and the object will either have one number in it or another number, depending on which arrow they press, left or right. So we'll check the key code property of the event that came in, and if it's 37, that's the left arrow. And if they press the left arrow, we want to move the ship to the left, which means take the x value down 1. And if the key code property of the event that comes in is 39, that's the right arrow. So our ship x coordinate would go up 1. We'd move it to the right. There's another way that we could write this. Ship x minus minus and ship x plus plus. It doesn't matter which way you write that. We also need to make sure that the ship doesn't go off the screen. So we want the x to be greater than 1, and if it's not, we'll just ignore it. And on the right-hand side, we want the ship x to be less than the biggest number in our grid. But the ship isn't one slice. It's like 3 big, so we need to take a little bit extra off. If you don't understand that, just take that -4 off and see how it breaks for you. Okay, so when they press the left arrow, we want to unset the ship. That means like remove it from the 2D array. Then we change the coordinate, and then we put it back on the array. And we'll define the functions to modify the array in a minute. So add box, we don't really need that right now. That was from when we were fooling around. And add tree, really that should have a different name. How about render tree? So that's where we actually draw it out. Let's make render ship now. Hold on, we don't need X and Y. We don't need to send them in. We already have them globally. It's a little bit different than render tree, because render tree you render in different places every time. Render ship, you just render it once. Okay, so that's not what we want. There we go. Ship.style. Left. What's the left position going to be? It's going to be like a multiple. It's going to be the ship X, which is defined at the top, times icon size X. And then we need to tell the units. So we do a string concatenation, or concatenation means you like tag it onto the back. The top, take the ship Y coordinate, which is at the top, multiply it by the icon size. So we're going to go ahead and add this to the container, because we don't add things to the body anymore. We put it in our nice centered blue box. So because we're driving everything from our 2D array, we need to remove the ship every time just before we place it. So it's like when they use an arrow key, you erase it and put it in the new place. Erase it from the old place and put it in the new place. So, and now don't forget the ship isn't just one spot in the array. It takes up 3 spaces. So we're gonna go 1 to the right, that's the +1, and 1 to the left. That's only in the X. The Y is just normal size. So yeah, we have to erase 3 spots to remove it from the 2D array. And then after we change the location, we want to record where it is in the array. P means player ship. That's the significance of that character. So yeah, see how this works? When they press the left arrow, we erase or remove the ship from the array, then we move the coordinate -1, and then we set the new position, and then we render the whole grid. We draw everything. You know what? If we're going to render the grid in both those cases, let's take the code out of those 2 places and just put it in 1. There we go. Clear up remove the space. Okay. I almost forgot. We need to actually render the ship as part of the render grid. Okay. Oh, and this little initialization thing that we were doing, we don't need 2 steps of initialization. Let's just add those to the setup function. Where is that thing? Okay. We're in the setup function at the very ends. We'll paste these 3 things we were doing: resetting the grid, building the trees, and rendering the grid. There. We don't need the semicolons anymore because they're on different lines. So oh, whoops. We changed the name of add tree to render tree, but we forgot to change where it's called. So let's make sure it all lines up. I think if I run the script, that'll go away. Let me see. Yep, okay, cool. Sometimes that happens. Okay, there we go. And we have our little ship at the bottom, and it can move. Okay, but it can't move to the extreme edges. Let's fix the coordinates. Where are those coordinates? Okay, they're in handle key down. So we were saying the ship X had to be greater than 1. Let's make it greater than 0. And on the right side, grid size X -3. So now it can go all the way to the left and all the way to the right. Very cool. I don't know if you noticed, but the trees are going all the way down to the bottom. So let's shift them up a bit, or let's reduce how far down they can go. Actually, we're going to need parentheses. So just like in math class, multiplication happens before subtraction. So if you want subtraction to happen first, you need to use parentheses. Anyway, let's go ahead and re-render. Oops, Rerun it, re-render. And yeah, look, we have some breathing room now. Excellent. The trees don't come down and touch the area where the ship needs to move. Okay, I noticed something weird going on. If you run the script several times, the ship starts to move in a strange way. Like, it'll move... Well, hold on. Let's just run it 4 times, and I'll show you. Look what happens when I press the arrow key. It moves 4 spaces. What's happening is that handle key down is getting run 4 times. Because every time we run the script, it rebinds it. So what we need to do is make sure that this doesn't get recreated 4 times. We only want this function to be created once. So let's check and see if it's defined. I'm going to show you how to do that. So we check to see if it exists yet, basically. And if it doesn't exist, then we create this function. And if it does exist, we do nothing. So I'm using something called an arrow function here. It's just another kind of function that doesn't use the function keyword. And we will talk more about this later, but for now, you can either copy this code and put it in yours, or you can just refresh the browser every time before you run the script. That'll also fix the problem. So watch, I'm going to run this thing 4 times again, 5 times actually. And then when I move, it's moving properly now. So the fix I just did works. Another thing that's been bugging me is that the map comes down so far that I have to scroll the browser. So let's make the map a little bit smaller on the y-axis and rerun it. Okay, look at that. Now the map is a bit smaller.